Guys, welcome to a quick bit of reading time with myself, Stardead. This is a long short story, part 1, written by our very own Zander, A23, coming all the way from the United States. The story's title is Extermination Order. Shall we dive in? I believe we're diving in. Golden Point Pest Extermination, what can we do for you? Uh-huh, yeah, full service. Okay, where now? Castle Cedia. Let's see, that's in Stormborough. So our guy can be there in 12 days. Would you like someone from our closer location instead? Oh, he's here, but he charges extra. Is that okay? All right, would you like to hear the rate? You already know. Great, he'll be off right away. Thank you for your patronage. Greasley set down the coaling stones and headed for my desk. Hey, boss, I heard. Castle Cedia. Haven't been, but it's a nice dreary area. Lots of undead and misery. Should be fun. Mind helping me load the carriage? I was soon waving to my employee and departing. A great big golden exclamation point was suspended over his head in the continuation of my greatest in-joke. Of all things I regret in life, commissioning a 10-foot tall neon gold sign shaped like the mark of a quest giver was not one of them. Even if nobody in this new world actually got my little joke, at least it was an absolute magnet for people like me. The first 4 days were a breeze, easily mistaken for a late spring jaunt through the countryside. And then I saw the blanket of grey clouds hanging over the horizon, eternal and persistent in their annoyance. The mule drawing my small carriage didn't like the gloom, but he knew who was in charge. We walked in the rain, ate in it, slept in it. The place was called Stormborough for a reason. And then on the 7th day came the first real issue.
Halt where you are, pitiful human,
bellowed a great voice from out of sight. A 20-foot tall demon of red and black materialized in front of us, carrying a great shard of obsidian that passed for a sword, if it didn't shatter on the first blow. Fire spewed from his eyes and mouth. My mule and I did not budge an inch.
Who dares trespass so brazenly into the lands of darkness?
He shouted. I casually reached into my pocket and drew a business card, flinging it at him like a little frisbee. It grew in the air and he caught it, quickly reading the fine print like an experienced little demon.
Golden Mark!
He looked me up and down.
Have we met?
I raised my finger. Drotrium Marocus. I thought I recognized you. I cleared that infernal bubonite infestation a while back. Jer smacked his forehead.
Dennis! Is that you? It is you! That hell fort was actually livable once we were rid of those. How have you been?
Doing well. Business is booming. And what about you? What takes you so far from the fort? He slumped slightly and handed back my card, which shrunk and dried itself.
Those gods, chosen bastards, blew it up and killed me. But you know you can't really kill a demon. You can only put him in crippling debt. And I hate this rain, but they don't try to stiff me. Come pay times with something. I'm still paying off the mortgage on the fort.
Fair enough, Jim. Listen, I'd love to catch up over Cindermoss tea, but I have a job and cannot be late. When you have a new place, give me a call. We'll have a cup, and I'll make sure nothing else moves in with you. Sound good?
It's a deal, Dennis,
he exclaimed jovially, patting me forcefully on the back with a 200-pound hand. And with that, I was off once more. The roads of mud were no fun, but I didn't mind as much as my mule. The one time we did get stuck, a horde of skeletons descended on us to push the cart out. And say what you want about the lands of darkness, but they know a service call when they see one. And the only time I was woken in the night was from a bunch of ghouls looking into the cart, reading the card that I had left on my head.
It's the best guy,
the biggest one whispered.
Eat something else.
And with that, they wandered off and I went back to sleep. And at the end of the rainy trip was the tall, imposing castle. Seeing it in the distance, I remembered the owner. A big, bad vampire who used our services before. He was a stingy bastard too. Always wanted to spring for our cheapest services, usually causing the problem to return in a week. And I quietly wondered what made him finally go for a premium package over saving money. It couldn't be good. I came up to the drawbridge around the moat. Well, the castle was built on an island in the middle of a whitewater river, so I'm not sure if it qualifies as a proper moat. But nonetheless, it opened without any input or communication from me, as it did with any real villainous adventurer magnet. Nobody was there to greet me. The courtyard was devoid of any minions, and it was in disrepair to say the least. Most, if not all of the traps were set off, and needed to be reset. Hedges and trees were overgrown, branches were strewn all about, and there were fair few bloodstains, even despite the rain. Must have been scorched on by fire, I surmised. I maneuvered the carriage under an overhang that kept the rain out and tied up my mule. What a mess. I hope to have the funds to pay me with all the repairs that need doing. I fetched my sword, an old staff of the heavens. It made for a good lantern and doubled for a spot of holy smiting in a pinch. Hood up, I marched over to the front entrance. The tall wooden door still had gouges from the prior battle, and I lifted the metal knocker and banged it down. But instead of a response, the force pushed the door open. I peered inside, and it was dark. Not vampiric mood lighting dark, but abandoned drug den dark. I walked in and shunned the light from my staff. It was a grand hall, all right, but utterly devoid of motion. "Hello? Anyone here?" I called out. And met with silence, I looked around and stepped further inside. It was not entirely out of the question that the place had been ransacked between the call and my arrival, but the scenario was unlikely. Suddenly, the door behind me shut, and someone whispered in my ear. "You come here seeking death, human?" asked a woman. No. I'm the pest control guy," I said, stepping away and turning around. A dark silhouette hung upside down from the doorframe, frozen. And after far too long, she spoke again. "Oh, is that today? I forgot, apologies." She dropped down and landed gracefully. The unnatural darkness faded from the room, and diluted light poured in from the dusty windows. She walked up to me, and I looked down to meet her gaze. Her face was young and uncomfortably so, 15 at most. She wore a large black cloak and nondescript dark clothes. I extended my hand. "I'm Dennis." She shook my hand. "Matrina." "Charmed. Mind if I call you Matty?" She nodded as I looked around, and I vaguely remember there being a big guy in charge here. "Something happened to him?" I inquired, unable to resist my curiosity. Matty's face hardened. "That would be my..." She searched for the word. "Sire." Almost called him Daddy, but he's not. He just liked turning young women. Some of the gods chosen came and dusted him. The idiots left him in a perfectly revivable pile over there by the throne. The first thing I did was throw him in the river, so we won't be seeing him again. I looked over my shoulder. "Not a fan of his, I take it?" "He had a thing for little girls, Dennis. His many daughters, as he called us, are the reason a vampire aging techniques exist. I was his favorite because all the others rightfully ran away, but I wanted the castle. And overall, good riddance." I whistled. "All right, then. I'll go get my tools and the stuff you need to sign. Would you please have one of your minions help me carry some things?" Without waiting for the response, I left out into the rain, and after digging around in my carriage for a minute, I had the papers and a set of tools that I used nearly every time. And when I turned to hand them over, I paused. Matty was there, holding her arms out. She saw my hesitation. "It's just me right now. Hand them over." With a shrug, I passed the tools and got my own load to take inside. And once out of the rain, we set the things down, and I gave her the contract in a waterproof tube. She popped it open, and out slipped both paper and quill. And I quickly pointed to 3 parts of the contract. "This top section is where you agree to pay for my services and specifies that I will remove all unwanted creatures from the premises. Middle is a non-disclosure agreement stating that I will not tell a soul about the castle layout, secret rooms, passages, hidden treasures, traps, and any other secret that might compromise your ability to safeguard this place against intruders." She nodded along. "And this last one, that is a conditional release. If you fail to pay me, the non-disclosure is void, and I will auction off all information on the castle to the highest bidder to recoup the losses. And here's the estimate at the very bottom, but it's not set in stone." Matty scrunched her nose and then sighed. "Steep, as expected, but I do need the best. I'll get the full plan with all the traps on it." "What made you want to have this place?" I asked while sealing the door in front of me with clay putty. "Well, it's complicated. As I said, all his other daughters, let's call them, left, and I wanted to leave too, but I decided to play the long game and pretend to be his favorite child, and the castle was worth some of my dignity." And with air no flowing from under the door, I began etching a glowing sigil into the wood. "Oh, and how well did that work out for you?" "Fantastically. I mean, I'm barely 40. From coming up with the idea to seeing it bear fruit was only 15 years, a pittance in the long run. Of course, now I have to decide what to do with all of this and myself." Right. It's a big change in your life. Would you pass me the orange jar?" Matty handed me the jar of cinder spice, courtesy of the hells, and I jammed it into the one-way phasing sigil and heard the glass shatter through the lumber. And then the screeches of the dire cockroaches sounded out and they pounded against the door, which I leaned against to hold shut. She crossed her arms and leaned against it beside me. Anyway, I figure I'll get aged up a bit, something that doesn't scream, "My daddy was a child predator." She pretended to gag in disgust before continuing, and after that I'll let all the young girls know they don't have to live in fear of being added to the family. As for the castle, it's nice, but it's a bit early for me to have a lair this big to myself, and I might have to sell it. If you do, the Sterling Moon Festival is a great seller's market. All the big-time adventurers travel to the major cities, so the risks and costs of moving and big villainous equipment fall off a cliff. Everyone wants to buy around then. Matty quirked an eyebrow. Is that so? I'll have to look into that. The door rattling stopped, and I gave it another minute before tossing a small pouch of azure sea mold through the sigil. It was clean up from there on. Fuck my life, I whispered. How did he get one of the clockwork dragons down here? We peered down into the unlooted secret treasury from the viewing balcony. Atop a sea of gold and gems rested a dragon of gears and belts, plates and hinges, steam and death. I don't know. I only ever saw this room twice, and it attacks everyone that's not my sire. His will and notes had nothing on dealing with it. Do you have any ideas? I stole another peek before ducking down. Only 12 were ever assembled, and each one has its own unique design. You have good eyes? Can you tell me if there are any gaps in the armor? Matty took a good long look. There is one small one on the back, but I think that's some bits that just pop out to defend that little chink in the armor. I could maybe miss down there and jam something in the gears before it can act. No, don't do that. There may be a unique, but there are some common features. First, it can detect the exact location of any dangerous creature within about 20 feet of it. Second, it can suck in a lot of air, meaning if you get near it in mist form, it probably just inhale you and send you to the internal boiler. Her arms went akimbo where she sat. Joy upon joy! Any more ideas? Maybe. How is your hypnosis? She looked almost offended. Immaculate, of course. I carry the blood of vampiric royalty after all. But what will it do to a machine? I held up a finger. No, not on him. Use it on me. Show me what you saw, that little gap in the armor. I can't believe you killed it by shoving your sword up its ass. I shook my head incredulously as she pulled me from under the gigantic metal tail resting limply on my bruised body. It doesn't have an ass. There was just a gap in the metal scales there, I swear. She brushed me off and I steadied myself on the shifting sea of coins while continuing to speak. And that was the unbelievable part? After I jumped clear over it and threw the mecha buster smack into the gap, you saw mid-flight? Matty nodded a few times. Yes. Now what about the 20-ton paperweight? To giving my shoulder a rub, I perked up. Well, that's the easy part. See, there's a group that's trying to collect all 12. I'll give them a call. They'll love it. And after a few minutes later, I was performing the contacting ritual with the calling stones. I input the series of directions, holding the mouth stone in the center, and waving the ear stone all about. Then they flashed, and I held them to my head. Hello? Yeah, it's Dennis again. No, I'm not calling to get any more money. Sort of. Yes, I know the increased bounty is not retroactive. Listen, I found another one. It's marked as lucky number 7. No, I'm not shitting you. Yes, really. It's currently disabled, only lightly damaged. Portal over and see for yourself. Yeah, I'm at Council City and Stormborough. You can safely zap into the courtyard, Maddie whispered in my ear. Courtyard, I repeated, giving her a thumbs up. And bring your waterproof creepy robes. All right, see you in 5. Yeah, bye-bye. I hung up and glanced at Matty, who raised an eyebrow. Who are they? Machine-worshipping cultists. They think the clockwork dragons are the closest thing to avatars of their god that exists today. Fun bunch. Smell like grease and the blood of sacrificial maidens.
Thank you, Dennis. Oh, thank you, good Dennis. I apologize for doubting you.
I shrugged. I don't blame you. What are the chances of one person finding 2 in one lifetime? The brass-robed figure looked down, showing even less of darkness under his hood.
For the average person, 1 in 470,284,310. But I imagine your occupation has a strong effect on your odds. You will find your pay and the horrid machine-killing knife delivered to your place of business within the week. And your cut will be delivered here directly, Miss Materina.
I continued the conversation, alone, saving a clearly uncomfortable Matty from speaking with them needlessly. Thanks, and good doing business with you. Will that be all?
Yes, but before we go, we are having a small trifle with some self-replicating mechanical centipedes. They are eating the valuable components. Would you be able to deal with them?
I looked to Matty for a moment. I can't abandon a job, but yeah, I can help you after I get back from this one. You sure you don't want one of my guys instead? He shook his head. No. All right then, I said while clapping my hands together. I'll give you a call in about 2 weeks. In the meantime, make some really terrible cogs and springs, stuff that will shear or snap in a matter of days, and leave them lying around the place. It'll be like rat poison to those things, hopefully. He shuddered.
Heretical as inferior craftsmanship is, we might yet resort to such an idea. May the machinations of time choose to sustain you.
And with that, he vanished in a flash, along with his 4 friends and the immobilized dragon, leaving a beast-shaped indent in the gold. And Matty visibly relaxed. God, I'm glad they're gone. You were spot on. Sacrificial maiden's blood. Ritualistically purified and everything. A fun bunch. She looked unsure. Is it really a good idea to help them collect those? I shrugged heartily. All 12 together couldn't end the world, or even more than a city or 2. Plus, imagining the maintenance cost of keeping a full dozen running? This one has been stored perfectly and was barely functional. I don't think there'll be a worldwide scourge. If you say so. You keep some odd friends, Dennis. I grimaced with a nod. Yeah, but they do pay pretty good, though. They do pay pretty good. Pass along the bottle of Endless Tide, please, I requested, halfway lodged into a snarl of plumbing. Here you go, she said while handing it to me. Are you certain that killing the normal rats is really a priority with everything else in the castle? I tipped over a vial of mototoxin into the rat hole before washing it down with an infinite, if slow, stream of water from the bottle. Absolutely. Anything that eats the dead rats will die, and they're the bottom of the food chain here. We just have to wait for it to overflow. Plus, it's best to clear whole areas rather than gun for the deadliest critters first, dragon aside. Some careful crawling got me, out of the mess of pipes and back into the henchman's bathroom space. And Matty sat on one of the benches, and I took a seat beside her at arm's length. And after a minute of non-stop flooding from the bottle, she grew bored. So, what did you do before this pest clearing business? She inquired casually. I fidgeted a bit. It's complicated. Her eyes met. I was one of the gods chosen, you see. Matty froze up, which was understandable. Given our reputation as overpowered goody two-shoes with main character syndrome and plot armor, it didn't help that a group of us were responsible for the situation in the castle. I put my hands up, placatingly. Don't worry. When that stupid goddess briefed me, she just said I need to make the world a better place. And I decided not to risk my underleveled hide and started a business instead. I mean, a pest-free world is better, right? She looked at me funny with one eye shut. You make it better for some pretty questionable types. Like you think she'll see it the way you do? I threw my hands up. That's on her for not being more specific. Besides, I funded the venture by collaborating with a great wizard to design the calling stones. So those have to count for something. That was you? I have to thank you for that. It really helps keep me in touch with my sisters. Welcome. Welcome. Now hold the applause. I stated as the water started to spill back into the room. Matty waved her legs back and forth as I scrambled to cast a sealing spell into the water, into the hole, and another to snatch the bottle. I stuck my finger in the neck to stop the flow and sat back down, and all the rats would drown within a few minutes. So, how did you die in your world? She asked, casual once more. I shook the water from my boots. Well, I was crossing the street, and you got hit by a truck? She interjected sarcastically. I scratched my nose. Well, yes, but actually no. See, I looked both ways, and it was clear. The lights were red, and the crosswalk was all mine. But then above me, a crane was lifting a cement truck out onto the street nearby, and the chain snapped. Matty burst out laughing. You got crushed by a giant falling truck, she said, halfway to hysterics. I mean, it's always a truck from what I know, but that has got to be the most imaginative way I've ever heard it happen. I crossed my arms and pouted. I swear there must be a curse or some celestial legal loophole or maybe an angry god of commerce back on Earth. But why is it always a fucking truck, dude? She slapped me on the back, which hit a bruise and knocked the wind out of me. Ha! You're funny. She trailed off. You know, with all these powerful people hailing from it, I don't even know what your world is like. I removed my finger from the bottle with a pop and said the magic incantation. The torrent of water flowing from its neck turned right back around, and a swirling tendril of current flowed through the air and returned from whence it came. I mean, I'd love to show you some of my memories through that hypnosis trick, but I don't want you to see any of the dirty shit that I fapped to. She flashed me a dirty, amused look, nor would I wish that you know mine. And the crystal ball doesn't lie. This is your best shot for a good night's sleep. I don't do breakfast, though. You'll have to make it on your own. I glanced back around at the dingy Gothic room, which revealed a cushy, albeit dusty bed and some other furniture. I turned back to Mattie. I've slept in ratty barns before. This is nice. She sighed. Good. I've had my fill of ungrateful types. Well, you know how they are. Always asking for more. In my case, that's bad for client retention, but now I'm going to put up some wards in a minute, so don't touch the bed for your own sake. She looked off into the halls, seeming to spot a wandering pest. Are we on schedule? Will you really have everything done so soon? 2 more days. Easy. You have my word. Well, give me a thumbs up. Right, well, sleep well. I'm gonna go terrorize the local villagers, otherwise they'll get complacent and the werewolves will eat them. Again. I chuckled and shook my head. Well, alright. Have fun.